All right, hey guys, welcome to the video. If you're new here, my name's Curtis, and today we are going to be diving into this box right here. You see the color? You guessed it, that's right. This box is from Hermes. And so what's inside this box is 4 fragrances from the Hermessence Collection. So yeah, we will be diving into these 4 fragrances today. So if you are curious to hear about these 4 fragrances from the Hermessence Collection, then let's go. All right, guys, so before I dive into this box, let me just talk a little bit about my experience with Hermes as a fragrance house. Now, I think if you're looking at fragrances in 2 categories of designer and niche, Hermes is one of those fragrance houses that obviously it falls under designer, but they're probably my favorite designer house. I feel like Hermes does a fantastic job of creating fragrances that aren't necessarily for mass appeal. And they do a great job of kind of stepping outside the box and being creative with their creations. Jean-Claude Elena used to be the perfumer for that house. Now it's Christine Nagel. And I do know that Christine Nagel kind of gets a little bit of flack. I think a lot of people prefer Jean-Claude Elena, but in my opinion, I feel like Christine Nagel is doing a great job for the House of Hermes. So yeah, I personally don't understand why she gets a lot of flack. But I think, also that's kind of common in the sense if you look at, if you discover a brand, you gravitate towards that brand. And then there's some kind of change, whether it's like the creative director for example, a prime example is like Amouage, right? You had the Chong era, and then you had those die-hard Amouage fans for the Chong era, and then the creative director changed, and then Amouage got a lot of flack because of the direction. However, for the new people that discovered Amouage, they're like, oh wow, this is amazing. But maybe for the old school diehard fans of Amouage, they're like, no. So you're always gonna have that split and divide. I think when there's a change up like that, whether it be from like creative director or perfumer or whatever the case may be, there's always going to be that split, and people who preferred, how it was originally versus the new kind of change up. I mean, that's going to happen basically with anything. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think Christine Nagel's doing a great job. I've been pleased with her work. I really enjoyed the H24 series. And again, like I felt like in that case, Hermes was really kind of taking a step outside the box. It was a DNA that we hadn't really experienced yet. So yeah, I really enjoyed that series. And of course, like if you look at, older style creations too, like I would say the fragrance that turned me on to the House of Hermes was Terre d'Hermes, right? That is a masterpiece, hands down. I have a 50 ml bottle of that. I'm about halfway through it. Love that fragrance. That's a fragrance that will always stay in my collection. But yeah, the Hermessence fragrances were fragrances that, I've been curious about for the longest time. And I think a big turnoff for me was the price point. These fragrances are very expensive. And so I remember just kind of like going into the Hermes store and like every time I would go in, I would just like look at the bottles. I didn't even really sample them. But I would just kind of look at the bottles and be like, wow, those are nice. Or kind of like, oh, I'm curious about this. But it was hard for me to kind of justify those prices. I do think that they may even be more expensive than Chanel, the L'Exclusive line. I could be mistaken, but I think they possibly are. So yeah, that was a big deterrent for me. And also for me, those come in 100 ml bottles. They might have 50 ml, I'm not sure, but in Japan, it's 100 ml bottles. Or what I recently discovered was that you can get a sample set in 15 ml bottles, and you can choose the 4 bottles from the line that you want. So when I finally found that out, I was like, oh, that's what I'm gonna do. This works out perfect for me. Not only can I now, these are still expensive, but the price definitely falls dramatically. And then 15 ml bottles, that's perfect for me in my own collection. Whenever it's possible, I always go with the smaller bottle size. It just helps me kind of you know, get around the space issue that I have with storing my fragrances. And, you know, when you start to acquire more and more fragrances, you know, and you start to build a larger collection, for me, in my experience, it is almost impossible for me to burn through a 50 mil, let alone 100 mil of something. So like anytime I can get like a 15 mil or a 30 mil bottle, that's what I do, because even for those sizes, it will take me forever to burn through. So yeah, when I found out that I was able to do that with the Hermessence collection, the Hermessence line, and I could choose which ones I wanted from that line, I was like, oh, this is hands down, this is what I'm gonna do. And I immediately purchased. So, and let me say this too. So with these fragrances that are in this box, and I will stop blabbing and I'll open the box very soon. But with these fragrances here, I did sample all of these in the store on a strip. Now I have not tried these on skin. So this will be initial first impressions from skin. I purposefully did that because I wanted to give a first impression from skin here. So yeah, let me open this lovely box here. We'll just get rid of that. And yeah, let me open this box and I'll introduce the fragrances to you, and then we'll jump into the sampling here. So when you open the box, it comes very nicely wrapped like that. You'll get this little card, Hermes card, and then everything opens up like that, and you'll have your 4 fragrances in a nice little Hermes kind of pouch right there. So I'll set this here and I will tell you the 4 fragrances that we have. So the first fragrance that we have is in here, if I can get it out of the pouch. Seems like there's also some kind of paper card in here. Yes, there is. I'll just set that there. But yeah, this is the pouch and the fragrance. So this fragrance is Oud Alezan. I think this is one of the newest releases to the Hermessence Collection. And just to let you know, if you're not familiar, all of the Hermessence Collection is in EDT format except for Oud Alezan, which is the newest release, and it's in EDP format. So, and I think all from this fragrance on, any newer releases will be in EDP concentration. So yeah, and so yeah, this is Oud Alezan. So I'm just going to leave this out of the pouch and I will keep this here. The next fragrance that we have is, this is Violette Volynka. Violette Volynka. And so I'll put this here, put the pouch over here. The next fragrance that we have here is, get it out of here, is Cuir d'Ange. Cuir d'Ange. So, and the last fragrance that we'll be sampling today is Vetiver Tonka. Vetiver Tonka. So if I'm not mistaken, I think Cuir d'Ange and Vetiver Tonka were created by Jean-Claude Elena, and Violette Volynka and Oud Alezan were created by Christine Nagel. I didn't deliberately pick it like that, but these were the 4 that had intrigued me the most from the line. And again, like, I sampled these on strip, so this will be a first impression sampling these on skin. Let me roll up my sleeves here. But what about you guys? Have you guys sampled anything from this line before? What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear what you guys have to think about this line in the comment section of this video. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into this. I think let's go ahead and sample maybe the EDTs first. I feel like Oud Alezan might be a bit stronger. And I think I remember it feeling like it was stronger off the strip when I tested off the strip. But yeah, let's go ahead and start with the EDTs first. Vetiver Tonka. So I'll go ahead and put this one here on my left hand. Vetiver Tonka. Let's get the sprayer. Okay. In the right spot here. Okay. So we'll put this on the left hand here. All right. 2 sprays. Okay, so immediately what I get from this, I get a very subtle sweetness combined with kind of like an earthy, almost peppery like vetiver. And there is kind of a soapy like quality to this as well. It does have a freshness. So it's a nice combination of kind of like a fresh, peppery vetiver that has a bit of soapy like quality to it, and that there's an underlying sweetness. I think that's coming from that tonka bean. Now let me say this too. I have not looked up any of the notes to these, so I have no idea what is exactly in here. I'm just trying to give you my thoughts on what the vibe that I'm getting. So please take this with a grain of salt. Man, but this is nice. There's almost like that vetiver in here is almost coming off a bit nutty. And what this is reminding me of immediately is another a vetiver fragrance that I have from the House of Laboratorio Olfativo. It's called Vetiverso, and that also has kind of like a nutty like vetiver note in there. Now vetiver can have many different facets, so that's why vetiver is one of my favorite notes, hands down. I just love the many different facets that it has. I mean, it's a note that can take you on a journey, and depending on how it's combined with other notes in the fragrance, it can give you a totally different vibe. So yeah, I love the smell of this. This comes off just very classy, elegant, sophisticated, very well put together, smooth. This is a very, very smooth composition. It's nothing that I wouldn't say that it's necessarily like jumping off the skin or anything like that. I feel like these fragrances are going to be, and from what I've heard, I have heard other people talk about some of these fragrances. So I feel like that these are going to be very elegant wears, more of an intimate like experience. You will get a bit of projection, I feel, but you know, for the most part, these are going to be more kind of, you know, elegant, sophisticated wears. You know, these are going to be fragrances that whisper rather than shout. And I feel like there's a real beauty in that. And there's definitely a place for these types of fragrances. But yeah, you definitely have that fresh kind of nuttiness. There is even like a slight pepperiness about this, and even like a very, very subtle powderiness about this. But now I don't know where that powdery like quality could be coming from. I don't know what is in here. But man, it smells really, really good. Jean-Claude Elena did a phenomenal job. There may even be some citruses in here. I feel like I'm picking up a very light hint of citruses off the top here. Man, but I feel like too, this is a fragrance that I feel like you could wear it year round. I feel like the sweetness in here isn't going to be something that's like overly cloying, like in the high heat. However, if you live in a very, very humid climate, it might be a bit too much, but that's where you would just have to adjust your sprays and kind of maybe, you know, make some slight adjustments there. But I feel like fall, winter, spring, you could easily pull this one off. And I'm talking about my climate here in Japan. I could easily pull this one off. It might even be my fragrance of the day. Man, I do really enjoy the smell of this. It's just blending beautifully with my skin chemistry, I feel. Man, this is nice. It's a very nice balance between that fresh earthiness and a subtle light sweetness. Lovely, lovely scent here. Man, yes. So that was Vetiver Tonka. Let's go on to the next fragrance. This is Cuir d'Ange. So let's spray this one here on my left arm. Cuir d'Ange. All right, we're gonna spray it here. All right, 2 sprays there. This one kind of seems like it was already primed. All right, so immediately I'm getting kind of like a leathery vibe. Cuir, obviously, in the name. I already knew that this was going to be about leather, and I also saw Eloise talking about this fragrance, and also Rich Mitch was, I saw him talk about this fragrance as well. Yeah, so you're almost getting kind of like, for me, this is like a brown, supple type of leather. It's a bit rough, but has like a smooth finish to it as well. There's also a slight, what is that? It almost kind of feels like there might be a bit of cumin in here as well. Nothing kind of overbearing or overpowering, but it feels like there's an underlying kind of spiciness to this. And to my nose at this point, it seems like it's cumin, but I could be completely wrong. Cumin, if it is cumin, it's such a hit or miss note for me. Like, sometimes it's just, I can't do it. Like, it comes off quite BO-ish on my skin, but sometimes it's done really well. Like, if it's used very subtly, I actually really enjoy it. And I feel like the way it's used in here, it is used very subtly. If it is used in here, I'm not sure, but yeah. And it seems like there might even be like a very subtle kind of floral presence to this. But there's it's also a bit woodsy. But I feel like, again, this is just a very smooth, elegant, refined leather fragrance. It's nothing that's going to be like offensive. And again, I feel like this is a fragrance that can be, you know, dressed up or dressed down. However, I feel like I'd be more inclined to wear this one with nothing less than a collared shirt. I feel like it just has that sense of kind of refined elegance that requires that type of vibe. But, you know, to each his own. I mean, you can wear fragrances with a t-shirt and these fragrances with a t-shirt and shorts if that's your vibe. Everybody's different. So, but just my impression of this is kind of how I feel. But yeah, there almost is something a bit earthy too about this leather. Yeah, I can't put my finger on what it is, but yeah, this is very, very nice. Man, but Vetiver Tonka, dang. Yeah, but Cuir d'Ange is really, really nice. But again, very light, airy. There's something a bit aromatic about this as well. Same with Vetiver Tonka. There's something a bit aromatic about it. But very nice. Very, very nice. But again, I can kind of see, like, if you're looking, you know, if you're paying a lot of money, and this is kind of where I think that battle would be in terms of like performance versus price, in the overall value of the fragrance. Like, this is where this line might get a bit of criticism. But I mean, if you're judging on smell alone, these are phenomenal. Phenomenal. And I would say of the two, Vetiver Tonka and Cuir d'Ange, I would say in terms of the scent profile that I enjoy a little bit more right now off my skin, Vetiver Tonka. I enjoy both of them, but I really, really like Vetiver Tonka. All right, so that was Cuir d'Ange. All right, so let's go into the next one. So this will be the last EDT concentration before you move on to Oud Alezan, which is the EDP. So this is Violette Volynka, and I'll be putting this on my right hand. All right, Violette Volynka. All right. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think this one was released in 2018. I could be mistaken, but I think so. So let's get this. Okay, 2 sprays there. Ooh, okay. So you can definitely, immediately when I smell this, I think purple. And I think even if I didn't see the name or the letters written on the bottle are purple, I would immediately think that, and because I can immediately pick up violet leaf in here. Now, violet leaf sometimes can come off a bit powdery. It can come off bright or a little bit dark, depending on how it's used. And it can also be a bit fresh as well. Here, there is a very subtle powderiness to this, and even a slight sweetness. And I don't know if that's coming from the violet leaf or another note in here. Violet leaf can also come off slightly candied in a way, but I'm not necessarily picking up on like a candied sweetness. This is more of a fresh, kind of powdered, slightly powdery violet leaf, but it is bright, but that brightness is a bit subdued. It's like if you were turning on the light in your room and you press the dim button and those lights, you can still see it's still bright, but the light's dimmed. That's kind of how it is with the violet leaf in here. I feel like it's like bright, but then it's a bit subdued and dimmed. I'm almost kind of picking up an underlying leather from in here. I don't know if leather is in here or not, but I'm kind of, is that leather? It feels like there might be leather in here. I do not know, but it kind of seems that way. But I feel like it's such a nice kind of contrast. In a way, what this is kind of reminding me of a little bit, and I just reviewed actually, is Cuir by YSL from their more kind of, I don't know, exclusive line. Because also in that fragrance, there's that kind of violet leaf and leather combination. It's kind of a fresh leather type of profile with a bit of darkness. And here I'm kind of getting a similar vibe, but I feel like there's a little bit more of a sweetness in here. Again, that sweetness is very subtle. And that leather isn't as prominent in here as it is in Cuir, but I can definitely pick up on something leathery in here. Again, there may not be any, so take all this with a grain of salt. But yeah, this is nice. I feel like, I feel like this one probably leans, these are all unisex, but I feel like this one, unisex pushing slightly feminine, whereas I feel like these are unisex. I feel Vetiver Tonka and Cuir d'Ange are unisex, and they might even push slightly masculine. But I feel like this one is unisex, nudging slightly feminine in my opinion. There's almost kind of like a clay-like essence to this as well. But yeah, really, really nice. Out of the three I've tried so far, Vetiver Tonka is easily my favorite. But I like all of them, and these will all get burned in terms of the wearings. But yeah, Vetiver Tonka, I think, is the top runner so far. So let's move on to the last fragrance, Oud Alezan, and this is the only EDP in the Hermessence collection as of now. This one was released, I believe, in 2024. So yeah, and I remember when I smelled this on the strip in the store, the rose was quite prominent in here. So I think this is their take on an Oud rose. So let's see. So let's spray this one here on my right arm. 2 sprays here. And yeah, it immediately pushes off very heavily. Yeah, this is definitely, I can tell just from now, this is projecting off. This is easily the strongest of the bunch. And what I'm getting in the air, I'm definitely getting a rose, kind of a fresh rose. There is a slight powderiness to this, but this is definitely a fresh rose. Now, at the moment, I'm not picking up on any oud, really, so it might be very subtly used in here, but what I'll say is, I feel like I'm picking up almost almost like a minty-like quality to this too. And I'm not sure if there might be some geranium in here. Geranium can sometimes give off like a minty-like vibe, or there might actually be mint used in here. But this is a very fresh, kind of rosy. It's fresh, but there is a slight jammy-like character to this, but in a very subtle way. There's a bit of spice as well. But I would say, you know, in a very overly saturated market in terms of oud rose fragrances, is this anything groundbreaking for being like a 2024 release? I would say absolutely not. Like, this isn't like blowing my mind. However, it's extremely well done, well put together. It smells amazing. There's no doubt about that. I do really, really like this. Now, I would say, would it be like 100 ml bottle worthy for me? Probably not. I think if I were to purchase any more of the Hermessence collection, I would purchase them just like this sample set here, because again, 15 ml is perfect size for me. But yeah, I mean, this is really, really nice. Just a very fresh, slightly woody take on, spicy take on the oud rose combination. But again, nothing groundbreaking, but just very pleasant, elegant, sophisticated. This whole entire line, really well done, well constructed fragrances. Every single one of these, man. I would say, you know, my two winners from this batch, for me personally, would be, let me re-smell these. Interesting. I would say it would have to go to Vetiver Tonka, and me being the rose lover that I am, it would be, what's the name of this again? What is the name? Oud Alezan would be the other one. And yeah. But Violette Volynka also smells really nice. I mean, Cuir also, I mean, it's completely different vibes for each one of these fragrances, but they all smell quite amazing. Yeah, and I feel like these fragrances too, just in terms of their performance and you know, they're elegant in nature in terms of how they wear. I feel like all these fragrances you could easily wear here in Japan. This is obviously the environment that I'm in, so I feel like these fragrances would work really well here. So I mean, if you're someone who is planning a trip to Japan and you do have any of these fragrances, I feel like they'll all work perfectly well. Keeping season in mind, obviously. I will probably purchase another sample set like this, and I'll dive into some of the other fragrances from this line. All right, guys, so that's all I have for you for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's content, and let me know down in the comments section, have you tried any of the fragrances from the Hermessence collection? What are your favorites? Well, I hope you guys are staying healthy and well, and I'll see you in the next video.